In today's episode, you want us to do everything? We'll just play dumb. The neighbor. Typical jerk neighbors complain about the truck in my yard, so I replace it. So let's get started. You want us to do everything? We'll just play dumb. This happened not too long ago, and the whole thing is about to end soon. I was hired as an English teacher at an academy, not a school teacher, along with 2 other teachers. I'll call them Melody and Karen. You can guess which one I'm pulling malicious compliance to, lol. Melody is just an absolute sweetest person and a teacher from one of the European countries. Melody and I were interviewed at the same time just after Karen was interviewed. We were told that all 3 of us would be building a curriculum and teaching plan in accordance with the said curriculum. Our boss then told us that all 3 of us would be teaching, but since Karen needs to take phone calls and whatnot, Karen would be responsible for only 20% of the classes while Melody and I would each teach about 40% of the classes. Fair enough, right? Well, Karen is a bit older than Melody and I, and thinks that she can boss everyone around due to the fact that our boss would be running other branches, and it would be up to 3 of us to take care of our branch. She would always pull, "But I'm older than you, therefore you need to respect me" card whenever we contest whatever she gives us. On top of coming up with our lesson plans, Karen slowly but surely put more responsibilities on us. During our probation months, 2 months, things got heated up when Karen would blatantly give her responsibilities on us, and we contested about it. She wanted to act like a head teacher while contradict herself by not doing any difficult work herself and giving it to us. Technically, all Melody and I had to do was coming up with a lesson plan and teach kids, but our responsibilities became unbearable when Karen basically told us to start doing designs, making a guidebook, helping her out with other stuff that she had to do herself. She would schedule meetings and mock lessons, which were super unnecessary, when we just simply didn't have any time to do them. Towards to the end of the probationary months, Melody and Karen decided that this academy simply isn't for them, and gave a month notice of resignation. I was transferred to a different branch and the workload has gotten a bit easier, but had to participate in lessons nonetheless. Despite Melody announcing that she would no longer work any more than she was told to, Karen has dumped essentially all of her responsibilities and workload to Melody. This really pissed off Melody, and we get into a discussion. One of the things that Karen asked us to do was to basically make a whole book out of our lessons, with graphical designs and charts and whatnot. Now, this is totally unnecessary, and we could have made it simpler. But no, Karen insists that we actually make a lesson book for the students to use. I would have been fine with this idea only if we had a professional person who could do this for us, but no, this was our job apparently. Melody and I were burned out from all the workload and decided that it's time for us to play dumb. Anytime Karen comes up to us and tell us about the book, the conversation would go as such. Karen, Melody, I need you to include this idea on this chapter. Melody, okay, but how do you want me to write this on this chapter? Karen, well, you need to specifically add, insert grammar rules, here in this chapter. Melody, sorry I'm not with you, can you explain what you want me to write? Karen, it's simple enough, just make some questions about, same grammar rules, on this chapter. Melody, I'm still not with you, can you write it down the questions so that I can put it in? Karen, so you want me to do this for you? Melody, well yes, apparently I'm not understanding what you're asking me, and since you clearly know what you want on this chapter, why don't you tell me the question itself, and I'll insert it. So Karen ended up writing the questions and all we had to do was copy/paste the questions onto the chapter. Whenever any of her workload came to us, we would just dodge them by playing dumb, and Karen caught the wind of our plan, and confronted us and said that she's only here to manage the place, not to act like a teacher. Her defense of giving us her workload was that these are directly related to our teaching lessons, therefore we had to do it. We reminded her that she's also hired as a teacher, and was supposed to do 20% of the lessons, of which she did none so far. She realized that there's no way out of this, and eventually pulled her "I'm far older than any of you, so respect me" card again, and we told us to go eat a bag of shit. On my last day at this branch, I told my boss that since Karen managed and handled all the teaching materials and knows my stuff, she should start teaching my classes as a replacement teacher. Karen objected with the idea and contested it by saying that Melody should be the one teaching the entire classes since Karen's too busy talking to the parents and whatnot. I kindly reminded Karen that Melody only knows what she planned, and that Karen has already seen my mock lessons and have all of my lesson plans. I also reminded our boss that she has not taught a single class over the course of 2 months, and should probably teach some classes. Boss agrees with me and assigns her with all of my classes. Now Karen's left with my students up until September, and won't be able to give anything to Melody since she'll be working remotely from her home. The neighbor. It was 3 a.m. in the morning and my entire family was asleep after a long ride back to our hometown. While having one of the most pleasant dreams that involved having expensive cakes and fine wine, it was rudely disrupted by the sound of our family's car alarm, and my father went out to check out what happened. Apparently, our neighbor was drunk and had fallen somehow. He hit our car hard enough for the alarm to activate. The entire issue could have been solved with a simple apology and everyone could have gone back to their own lives, but if that happened, I wouldn't be telling this story. Our neighbor was known to be a rather proud person, and had loudly declared a few times that no one had ever won an argument against him in the past. So it was not surprising when he decided to push the blame onto my father when he realized everyone in my house was watching him. My father tried to talk things out and ask if he needed help, but the possibility of a peaceful discussion was going down pretty quickly when we saw that our neighbor's face was about as agitated as a fish out of water. None of us knew what was going on because as far as we knew, our car was parked in front of our house, and there was nothing wrong with that. It also didn't help that our neighbor looked like a centipede that lost 98 legs, and could barely stand properly without trying to use our car as support. Their conversation went something like this. "Father, are you okay? Do you need help?" Neighbor, looks around, your car. "I fell because of your car." Father, I'm sorry that happened. Neighbor, move your car, or I'm calling the police. Father, go ahead, my car's in the right place. While we were waiting for the police to arrive, his outbursts had woken up nearly everyone in the vicinity of our small neighborhood, and our neighbor was loudly exclaiming how he was right, and how my dad didn't know the rules here, because he doesn't live here. My father kept his poker face up all the way till the police came. My neighbor then granted himself a glamorous show of him being arrested in front of everyone with the charge of being a public nuisance, for causing damage to someone's property with mischief, as well as drink driving later on after the police found out there was no way he walked home from the bar 30 kilometers away. Although his fall only caused a small dent on the car's boot with slight damage to the paint job which would have been easily fixed, my father got $1,000 in payment for damages. We had a great dinner the next day which consisted of expensive cakes and fine wine. Typical jerk neighbors complain about the truck in my yard, so I replace it. I live in a mostly quiet neighborhood with lots of snowbirds and weekenders because of the proximity to a lake. The year-rounders are mostly retired and people generally get along fine. A couple years ago, neighbors on one side built a new garage and driveway, moving their cars much closer to my existing forsythia hedge. I love the forsythia in the spring and basically let it grow however it likes so I can have the bright yellow flowers. Almost immediately they started complaining that the hedge blocked their view as they backed out of their driveway. In my state, neighbors have no right to a view extending over someone else's property, and our Supreme Court has repeatedly ruled that as long as trees and bushes do not actually impinge onto the roadway, property owners have no obligation to trim for visibility. I keep a 5-foot strip mowed between my hedge and the road, perfectly reasonable to my way of thinking. Since they have no recourse hedges, they instead complain to county code enforcement about anything else they can think of. My brother parked his licensed and insured project truck on my property a while back because he was in the process of moving and needed a spot for it while he was figuring things out. In the meantime, he was in a bad accident in another vehicle, and the truck has been sitting for over a year now. The license plate recently expired, and I got a letter from the county with threats of fines if it wasn't removed. Cue the malicious compliance. My brother decided to sell the truck for scrap and had it towed away this morning. This gave my neighbors their temporary victory as they observed from their deck and nearly 6 inches of improved view from their driveway. At least until I moved my second vehicle, a 1960 Lincoln, which is about 2 feet longer than the truck with current plates and insurance, into that place this afternoon. As a single person with more than one vehicle, I may get around to driving that old car at least once more before winter. Thanks for watching.